And it's great, sir, for Cam. That's media, our weekly Army football huddle. I'm coming right from West Point, from the football building, Randall Hall here at West Point. The Black Knights practice full pads today, getting set for their game at Tulsa. An opportunity to go 5-0 on the young season. And after we talked to a little bit with offensive coordinator Cody Worley. And so let's introduce our group here today. Calling in from Florida, we have Richard Miller. How are you?
Very well, Ken. Looking forward to get back into work with this game against Tulsa. Hoping to improve on a very strong start to the season.
Very good. And calling in from South Jersey, we have former Army offensive lineman, class of '92, Steve Chaloult. Steve, how are you?
Doing fantastic, Ken. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Always good when I'm at Army for football practice. And calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, Colonel Sam Houston. Colonel, how are you?
I'm good, Ken. Very much relieved to know that my parents up in Avery County, North Carolina, are safe and well. I cannot say that about everyone in Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee. I did want to just make sure up front to ask everyone, please recognize the gravity of the situation in Western North Carolina and the mountains, as well as Eastern Tennessee and sections of Northern Georgia. The hurricane effects in the mountains were absolutely catastrophic. It is an apocalyptic situation up there. If you can take the time to offer your prayer, but even better, find a reputable fund or a donation or charity that you can rely on that can ensure that they're getting things that they need, and they'll see it through. But I cannot even start to describe the chaotic situation that is ongoing right now as a result of the hurricane. So thank you very much. And for reference, in relation to Army football, Avery County, North Carolina is also where Paul Johnson resides, who is, of course, Jeff Monken's mentor. And, we wish the best to Paul Johnson and his family, as well as everyone, friends and family of North Carolina are going through this situation.
Yeah, no, it's great news, Sam, that your parents are okay. You were describing to me offline the severity of the amount of sheer rain that has affected the area. I mean, in terms of 40 inches of rain, it's just, it's over a yard of rain and going into mountains, flooding valleys. I remember West Point had the storm last year. It was 9 inches of rain, caused $200 million of damage. And this is on a whole other scale. So really our best wishes to everyone there. And find a charity. Salvation Army is always one of the first on the scene. American Red Cross, of course, usually first on the scene for a disaster like this. So we will keep them in our thoughts and prayers and try and take some action too. It's very bad when there were storms in Texas and New Orleans that football community would, fill their trucks up to bring supplies down to the area when they had the opportunity. So glad to hear your parents are okay. Well, we got a football game on Saturday, and Army's going to go out to Tulsa, try and go to 4-0 in the American Athletic Conference. And what's interesting is both Navy and Army, the two service academies in the conference, are both undefeated on the season. And Navy's, of course, going to play Air Force this week. So a lot happening. First, why don't we take a quick wrap up on the win at Temple last week, 42-14. A very dominant win by Army. Went out to an early lead and really just kept the pressure on all day. Army had a strong rushing day, 417 net yards, average 7.3 yards a carry. And Army is, in fact, the leading team in rushing the ball in Division One, over 400 yards, just under 400 yards per game. So, Sam, what was your impression of the game, the win at Temple?
It was good to see Army complete the trifecta of owl elimination with their dominant performance in Temple at Lincoln Financial Field, a place where they've been seeing a lot of success as of late. The game was a great example of how good this Army team is when they are firing on all cylinders. It wasn't the case for the entire game. They did have some lapses, and some lapses did happen on both offense and defense. Fortunately, they were very minor, and fortunately, they didn't cost the game. It was good to see Kanye Udo have a great coming home party in Philadelphia, running for well over 100 yards and a touchdown. Bryson Daly continues to be, he's already entered into the Heisman conversation at this point, and rightfully so. The kid is a natural leader, and he simply wills the team into the end zone. I saw an interesting stat about Army that is, I don't know if it's ever happened before. Maybe it might date back to the 40s in the age of Colonel Red Blake. But what I heard is that Army is the only team in FBS who has scored touchdowns on their first two possessions of every single game that they played this season. That's pretty impressive. And I believe they lead FBS in efficiency within the red zone. And as you stated, they have firmly reestablished themselves as the leading rushing team in the nation. So great job by the offense, but they did have a little sequence there in the second quarter that gave us all a scare. There was the errant pitch by Bryson Daly that then got the batting penalty by Noah Short that backed us way back. And of course, no damage ended up being done in the long run over that whole sequence of plays, but Army ended up in a 3rd and 33 situation and then ended up having to punt. And then later in the second period, as time was winding down, Bryson Daly got hit in what was apparently a fumble. The replay booth overturned it and claimed that his arm was moving forward. I didn't quite see it, but the referees, they're smarter than I am, and they probably had a different angle than we could see on the television. But fortunately, it was not an Army turnover, and of course, Army finished the game with no turnovers. And then they came back with a vengeance on offense in the second half to put the game away. On defense, sacks. Last week during the huddle, as we were doing our lightning round, I said Army had 0 sacks coming in the game. I said, watch for it. Nate Woody he's going to figure it out, and Saturday they're going to get some sacks, and by golly, they did. 7 different sacks from 7 different players. They kept the Temple quarterback running for his life a lot. They held Temple to -5 yards rushing. They had an interception. Yet there was it's probably the worst blown coverage play in FBS football this year when they had the full kitchen blitz going on and failed to pick up the tight end, who was so wide open and literally only had one man to beat who was already blocked. And this guy lumbered 51 yards for a touchdown. But that was the last time Temple saw the end zone. And then there was, by my understanding, I believe Army's kickoff specialist, unfortunately had a season-ending injury, and he had to be spelled by another kickoff specialist. So, we definitely feel for him and look for him to come back strong next year. But overall, you can't complain about the game. Yeah, there were some plays. It was a short week, and you know what? Sometimes on a short week, mistakes happen. They happen. This team just dusts themselves off and acts like it never happened and just starts pounding even harder. And they did. The symbol of the game is probably Bryson Daly hurdling a defender, rumbling downfield for about 30 yards. So looking forward to Tulsa.
Okay, as you mentioned, I am at West Point in the Kimsey Center, and some of the Army players are finishing up their dinner and heading off to their study sessions for the evening. Great to see. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be here as you're covering football practice today. Let's go to Steve Chaloult. And at first, I have to say welcome to Chuck Donican. Chuck was with me down in Philadelphia covering the game on last Thursday. Chuck, how are you?
I'm great, Ken. That certainly was a tremendous victory, 42-14, though, as Sam pointed out, wasn't quite solid defense to start out the second half, but they rebounded from that, kept on track.
Very good. And we see Jack McGurk has joined us with a great background photo for four helicopters in the background. Jack, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Ken? Great to be here. Happy to see the Army kind of beat down of Temple over the weekend.
Okay. Okay, let's go to Steve Chaloult. Get your impression of the game, Army's win at Temple last Thursday night.
Yeah, Ken, I had the privilege to be able to attend that game and got to see it firsthand. Very excited about the outcome. And, it's time for us as fans to turn the page a little bit, right? So we have been a little bit spoiled up to this point, and now it's time for us to have realism set in, in terms of who we've played up to this point. We haven't been hitting the cream of the crop, and we're going to need to play better as we move forward. Our expectations need to be tempered, but we're excited about where we are. I thought we played well. I didn't think we played great, and I think the short week really affected us a little bit. So I give a little bit of a pass on that. But we had some definite areas at which we needed to tighten up before we go off to our next game. Offensively, there were some sloppy patches. But, again, we're out rushing for over 400 yards. We held them to -5 yards. It's very difficult for a team to recover from that. And also scoring defense, we're still very stringent, very strict when we get down into the red zone. The touchdown they got against us was that long touchdown, which was of significance. That game could have been a lot different if the holding penalty on the first drive that Temple received was not called. They could have been up 7-0, and that changed the complexity of that game a little bit coming out of the gate. So we were fortunate on that call. I think we were very fortunate on the fumble call where they overturned it and said his hand was moving forward. I didn't really see it that way, but I was more than happy to take it. So now our mentality as fans and of the team itself, we need to start thinking about how do we take this to the next level? As you look at our AAC opponents that are coming up, I watched a very talented, inspired Mean Green of North Texas play against Tulsa the other night. And they're going to be a handful for us. Tulsa could beat us. A very talented team that's rushed for over 1,100 yards, thrown for 1,100 yards, rushed for 900 yards. So, and we're playing on the road, and that used to be the kiss of death for the Army football team. So we need to stay focused, because if we take the eye off the prize, and that's what the next game is, that's our prize. It's not Navy, it's not North Texas, not Notre Dame, it's Tulsa. And if we keep focused and continue down that, now all indications team-wise, I feel like they are as focused as I've ever seen an Army team be. But we need to keep that and keep our expectations tempered. And I think that if we go next game up, next man up type mentality, we'll be super successful. So Temple game was one to put in the books. Time to turn that page and get squarely excited about showing our vengeance on the Hurricanes.
Well, certainly great listening to Coach Munkin today and Coach Worley. They are squarely focused on only one thing, and that is Tulsa and the challenge of that opponent traveling out on the road for the second week in a row and being able to execute at a high level. As Coach Munkin said, that's what they need to do to have a chance to win. I would point out, I spoke to Bryson Daly and Coach Munkin and Coach Worley about Connor Finucane. And I really liked the play he was making from his left tackle spot, pulling out in front of Bryson Daly to lead a sweep play. And they ran it a couple of times. And They say he's up to 295 now, having lost a lot of weight during his Army training this spring. But he's got some speed, and I like that play. And of course, Bryson Daly rushed for 152 yards, 3 touchdowns, average 6.3 per carry. And Noah Short, 5 carries, 80 yards, average 15.6 per carry. The rushing game is solid. And we talked a little bit with Cam Sure today, catching the 18-yard touchdown pass in the fourth quarter from Dwayne Coleman, who got a chance to get in and run a drive. He seems to be ready. If Bryson got hurt or had to take a series off, he is ready to go. He is laser focused and ready for any time that he is needed to play. I remember he played very well in the spring game his freshman year, now junior. And so we also talked to James Wagenseller, who's had punted 3 games at 3 times at Temple. The activity Coach Munkin least likes to do is punt the ball. But he is giving Army some consistency when they do decide to punt. And on defense, Army is rated high, only giving up a max of 14 points a game. Down at Temple, Brett Jarena, 7 tackles. Andon Thomas had 7. Kyle Lewis and Caleb Fortner had 5 each. Cody Harris-Miller, the nose tackle, had 4. Ella Mendoza had 3. As you said, Sam, 7 sacks by the Army defense. 1 by Brett Jarena, 1 by Kyle Lewis, Ella Mendoza. Adam Cash had 1, and Eric Ford had 1, along with Jacoby Tuioti and Chance Keith, linebacker, had comprised of 7 sacks, which is challenging for Army because of the size of the offensive lines they're playing against. And they have to really work at doing their blitzes and their stunts to create a hole for one of the linebackers generally to be able to try and go into the backfield and go for a tackle for loss. But so that was a Temple game, 42-14, fourth win for Army. And we're going to move on and talk about Tulsa. But Chuck, why don't you tell us how the other teams in the American Athletic Conference did this past week?
You bet, Ken. Very close contest between Charlotte and Rice, ending with a 21-20 Charlotte victory. Meanwhile, East Carolina UTSA ended with East Carolina emerging victorious 30-20. North Texas and Tulsa, 52-20 for North Texas, giving them the win, while Navy beat UAB with a final of 41-18. And in other news, Tulane scored 45 over South Florida's 10, while the Memphis-Middle Tennessee contest ended with a 24-7 Memphis victory. And finally, Florida Atlantic beat Wagner 41-10.
Chuck, just had Bryson Daly come by and say hello.
Yeah.
He is so cordial. It's been great to know him and follow his career. And it's good to hear that he's in the Heisman discussion. That's great to hear. He deserves to be in that discussion. Okay, let's go to Richard and tell us a little bit about some of the other big games of college football this past weekend.
Definitely, Ken, and an instant classic in Tucson, Alabama. Alabama defeated Georgia 41-34. Alabama goes to 4-0 on the season, while Georgia goes to 3-1. Number 3, Ohio State 38-7 over Michigan State. Ohio State goes to 4-0. Michigan suffers their second loss at 3-2. Number 17, Clemson 3-1 now with a 40-14 win over Stanford, who's now 500 at 2-2. Number 9, Penn State 4-0, defeating Illinois 21-7. The Fighting Illini are number 19 in the country at 4-1. The number 1, the Texas Longhorns, 35-13 over Mississippi State. Mississippi State goes to 1-4, while Texas now goes to 5-0. Number 18, Iowa State shuts out Houston 20 to nothing. Iowa State goes to 4-0 on the season. Number 21, Oklahoma gets a 27-21 victory over Auburn, while it's number 13, the USC Trojans over the Wisconsin Badgers 38-21. USC improves to 3-1 while Wisconsin is 2-2. Number 16, Notre Dame, and number 15, Louisville 31-24. Notre Dame gets the win. Notre Dame goes to 4-1. Texas A&M 21-17 victory over Arkansas. Arkansas Razorbacks go to 3-2. The Aggies will improve to 4-1 on the season. Number 23, Kansas State 42-20 over Oklahoma State. The Cowboys are now 3-2 on the season, while Kansas State is 4-1 on the season. BYU number 22 goes to 5-0, defeating Baylor 34-28. Baylor is now 2-3 on the season. Number 12, Michigan defeated Minnesota 27-24. The reigning national champions are now 4-1 on the season, while Minnesota goes to 2-3 on the season.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Appreciate it. Have you back. Go pick your 5 best games of the upcoming week and go to Jack McGurk. Looks like Navy is obviously faring well, 4-0. And Air Force is struggling a little bit. What do you got for us, Jack? We got Jack. They have lost him. Okay. Let's start. We'll get back to Jack McGurk in a moment, and let's start talking about Tulsa. They are 2-3 on the season. They started with a win over Northwestern State, 62-28, and they lost at Arkansas State, 28-24, close loss. They lost 45-10 at Oklahoma State, and they played Louisiana Tech, and they won 23-20. And last time out at North Texas, they lost 52-20. So they're 2-3. They're coached by Kevin Wilson, who's a former head coach in Indiana, also the offensive coordinator for at Ohio State from 2017 to 2022. In fact, he was the offensive coordinator of Ohio State when Army went out and played the Buckeyes in the 2017 season. He's coached some 3 Heisman Trophy winners and the likes of J.K. Dobbins and D. Wayne Padding. And Scott is well known as an offensive coach. Sam, what's your thought about Army facing Tulsa on Saturday?
Yes. So Steve kind of, segues us into having this discussion. Tulsa, hey, it's an away game. Tulsa's a talented team. Don't be fooled by their record. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but compared to the teams that Army has played so far, Tulsa, their stats actually suggest that they are a better team against the run than any of the teams Army has faced so far this year. They have, they've been in most of the games that they played, the games they won and the games that they lost, they were still in position to win with the exception of this past Saturday at their game against North Texas, who happens to be another Army opponent later this season. The real key to Army is recognizing and staying laser focused on the fact that the goal each week is to go 1-0. So records mean nothing going into this week. You need to be completely focused upon having a game plan that is designed to defeat Tulsa on both sides of the ball. So that is going to require Army to not have mental lapses like they had on occasion against Temple. And because, again, it is an away game, I haven't checked the weather forecast to see what we're expecting for the game time. But I will say that it is important to have a game where Army's game plan is very simple, just like it always is. And that is you want to win time of possession. You want to run the ball and sustain long drives that eat up considerable amounts of clock and finish every drive with a touchdown, not field goals, but a touchdown. Do not turn over the ball. That's Army's offensive plan. Army's defensive plan remains exactly the same as it should be each week, and that is stop the run first and let the defense take care of the rest. Make Tulsa's offense be one-dimensional, and then you can tee off on the quarterback, kind of the way Army was doing against Temple. And but whatever, you need to stay in position, stay in your lane, and understand the play that's being called, whether it's offense and defense, and do your job. So win the turnover battle and win time of possession, score on every drive. And I would say Army wins this game, but it is not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be easy. Tulsa's coming. They still want to turn their season around. And, we're too early in the season to say a team isn't eligible to go to a bowl anymore. Certainly that's not the case. Tulsa is still right in the mix of things. And they're going to show up hungry, especially after this game against North Texas. So it's going to be a game that's, every week is tough. This one's going to be tough as well. Tulsa's not Temple. Tulsa is Tulsa, and Tulsa's going to come to play. Army needs to come focused and ready to play at the high level they have shown they are capable of in every game they played this week.
And their quarterback is Kirk Francis, who is a redshirt freshman, 90 of 154. They've been passing for 229 yards a game, so they're a passing-oriented team. They run up for 187 a game. And he's got 6 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, averaging throwing for 196 yards a game. Doesn't run very much. I think he only had about 50 yards rushing so far. Steve Chaloult, what's your thought about facing Tulsa?
Yeah, I mean, a lot that Sam said, I really agree with. And the stat that he opened up with early on about having a scoring on the first 2 drives of every game thus far this year takes a tremendous amount of pressure off of the defense, and also puts a lot of pressure on the opposing offenses. If you look at Temple game, and I mentioned that holding penalty that brought back that touchdown, and if our series right before the end of the half happened in the first or second series, we could be looking at a much different feel and a much different, approach to a ball game. So it's really all a matter about timing and everything else that go along with it. So we need to continue to come out the gate, start fast, finish strong. If we can continue to start fast and put up a couple scores early on, I can't over explain this enough in terms of how much pressure it puts on a freshman quarterback or redshirt freshman quarterback, that he now has maybe 6 more series in the game because of the way that we hold on to the ball, that he's got to be successful in 4 or 5 out of the 6, and the defense has got to hold us from doing what we do best. 4 out of the 5 series that we have coming up to win the ball game. That is, it plays tricks with you. Now, he's a freshman, redshirt freshman. He happens to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's from that area. So he's going to have probably 90 of his, former girlfriends and family members there. So, it's just really key that we have had a recipe coming out of the gate that puts us in a position where we can have a little bit of swagger and attitude. If a bounce doesn't go our way early on, we might have to test our resiliency a little bit coming out of the gate. Now I'm picking at theoreticals, but I when you play on the road against quality Division I teams, and if you look at a lot of transfers from Tulsa, and a lot of transfers from USC's of the world, not New Hampshire's. And I love people from New Hampshire. I grew up in Maine, but we're talking about quality ball players that were probably recruited in the 4 and 5 star level that are now playing for Tulsa, that are trying to find their home. So the potential's there, and if they get the right attitude and they get the right combination going, it could be hard sledding for us. We can't take our foot off the gas. We got to come out, start fast, finish strong. Defensive wise, they're decently big. They're not as big as Rice was up front. They're about the size of where Temple was. You know, the nose guard's at about 303, 305, and their defensive tackle is in the 285, 290 range. More than, you know, in the past, that would have been an issue for us. But now we're probably going to be bigger than them on our offensive line, which is still blows my mind that we can say that. We're going to be bigger than them coming out of the gate. And we've got offensive linemen that are healthy and are blocking at a high level and a high speed. We just got to, you know, keep our hands on the ball, be smart with what we do, and execute, and we will be okay.
They have you mentioned transfer. They have their leading tackler, or one of their two leading tacklers is number 19, Gavin Potter, who's a grad student and played 4 years at Kansas. So, which is a nice thing to see a player gets a chance to have another experience and perhaps get a master's degree at a second school. Steve, let me ask you. I guess one of the challenges in college football, Tom Herman, the coach of Florida Atlantic, talked about this, is when you have a lot of transfers on your roster. They had 50 at Florida Atlantic, and you mentioned quite a number at Tulsa. Is it harder on offense or defense to blend those players into the lineup when you get let's say, a talented transfer into your lineup? Is it offense or defense harder?
I think in my philosophy on this and just starting a season, that you come out of the gate in a season, your defense is always going to be a little bit further along than your offense. So you're going to have a little bit lower scoring games because the offense don't have their timing yet. They haven't, when they scrimmage, you can't touch the quarterback. So, and you're not hitting running backs for the most part. So your timing is going to be a little bit off. So I think coming out of the gate, especially with transfers, because offense is so timing related, I would say defensively you will gel faster. And as the season goes on and you become a little bit more seasoned and hardened, the offense will catch up. Now, talented schools that have a good leadership base, team-wise, will pick up pretty quickly. Now, the question always becomes with transfers, are you getting somebody who's a graduate student, or are you getting somebody who's a cast-off? Somebody who's frustrated because he was a high recruit but didn't really come to their full potential at a Rutgers, Oklahoma, USC, and now they're looking for another place to play, and they're bringing a little bit of baggage with them? Or are they going to grad school because they want to study cow science in Oklahoma? I don't know, but you know, whatever they want to get for graduate school. And they're going there for more benevolent reasons, and they're just a great kid and a great, you know, they've had a great season previous to. So, you know, you could be melding a melting pot of issues, or you could be bringing together some great people. I suspect that you're going to have a little bit of both, with as much as I look at my screen here, as many people that are that have transferred, you're going to probably have a smattering of both. If you got a quality coaching staff, they're working through those issues to bring together the best possible team.
Well, Tom Harmon, the coach of Florida Atlantic, also paid Army a high compliment in saying that you know, Army's playing juniors and seniors for the most part, and they all developed in the program, and how true that is. And you know, you see that with the offensive line and in particular, but really throughout the roster, the advantage Army has in continuity, and players have been developed through the program. That's what Cody Worley was talking about today. They are a developmental program in Army. They don't get, you know, the top recruits, but they get players who want to play and want to serve the country in the Army. I was really impressed with James Wagenthaler. We talked to the Army punter and talking about being an honor to be here at West Point, to be healthy enough to serve, and to be able to serve the country as a future U.S. Army officer. I mentioned I saw Tyrell Robinson out on the practice field. He was kind of not quite working with the offensive unit, so I don't think he's quite ready to play. But he's out there. He's out there in full pads and taking part in some of the drills, but not with the regular offense, from what I could see. But it's good to see him out there after the injuries that he's had in his career.
Real quick, and something that you just mentioned,
Okay.
when you're talking about seniors and juniors that are coming together, and that happens normally with regular programs. If you're a developmental program, that means a lot. The difference with Army is, and Sam shared with his family and the things that are going on in North Carolina and all that other stuff. Shared experiences, shared tragedies, shared challenges bring forth the melding of people that become brothers and sisters for life, right? And from the day that you walk into the academy, you're thrown into beast barracks, which is unnatural for a 17 and 18-year-old to have to, do the things that they're doing. Even though it was much harder when I and Sam went to school, by the way, we have to put that disclaimer out there. But
exactly.
But when their friends and the people that are playing for Tulsa and other schools are still out at the lake on their wave runners and doing all the other stuff that they're doing and going to parties and getting ready to leave for fall camp, they're already there going to 4th of July in Trophy Point and living a shared life in a Spartan-esque type situation. And then they go to Buckner, and then they go to all these other places together and sleep out in the cold and be in the mud. And that starts creating an attraction of a brotherhood. And that's why we use the word brotherhood that transcends even further than the football portion of it. Because there aren't a lot of teams, I will include Navy and Air Force in it, where they're mucking around in the mud. They're doing a quasi-military thing, but they're not doing the stuff that these guys do. And if you told a regular college student about their days, and that's why they always put on CBS Sports a day in the life of Daly, right? It's because it's unnatural what they do. And it's called embrace the suck. And that's what we do. And when you do that for a period of 4 years, it becomes an us versus them mentality. And you build that metal of a team that is hard. And you can see it now with this team. It's hard to supplant that because they have done it better than most Army teams have done it.
Steve, very well said. What players do here. Well, look at that. So West Point, we watch them get a chance to go up to Camp Buckner and watch some of the training. Goes on all summer for the upperclassmen and then for the freshmen, and what they do during the course of the year. 24/7 environment. Very little time they get to go away. And that's why we're always so impressed and proud to be able to tell their story wherever we can. Jack McGurk, we missed you a little bit before. Tell us a little bit about Navy and Air Force, how they did last week, and I know they're playing each other this week.
That's right. Yeah, we'll start off with Navy. They beat UAB 41-18. Junior quarterback Blake Horvath completed 9 of 11 pass attempts for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also rushing for 84 yards, had a rushing touchdown as well. Navy ran for 227 yards in the game, through, as I said, for 225. Eli Heidenreich had 3 catches for 108 yards to lead the receiver corps. And Horvath, as I said, 2 touchdown passes, threw a 77-yard touchdown pass to Nathan Kent as the first half came to an end. And then at the beginning of the third quarter, he had another 70-plus yard pass. It was a 74-yard touchdown pass to Eli Heidenreich. It thought to be maybe the first Navy game where they had 2 70-plus yard touchdowns in one game. But on defense safety, Rayon Lane led the Navy defense with career high 12 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. Justin Reed recorded 7 tackles, career high 3 tackles for loss, and a career high 2 sacks to go along with that fumble. But great game for Navy. They're 4-0. By the way, UAB in a couple of weeks, they're going to be making their way up to Mikey Stadium. And Air Force, on the other hand, they had kind of a rough weekend, 31-19 loss to Wyoming. First win of the year for Wyoming. Air Force rushed for a season high 205 yards. John Boucher, quarterback, threw for 115 yards. Receiver Kate Harris had 5 catches for a career high 106 yards in the game. He was the first Falcon to go over 100 yards receiving since David Cormier did so against Navy in 2022. Falcons had a 13-7 halftime lead, but then Wyoming came back and took the lead, and scored 17 unanswered points, pulling ahead to 24-13. Air Force made it 24-19 after Aiden Calvert had a 75 covered with the Falcons with a 55-yard, 4-yard rushing. I'm sorry, he had 50 yards rushing on 3 carries. He had a 37-yard touchdown run in the third quarter. But then Wyoming was able to come back with another touchdown, sealing the 31-19 win there for Wyoming. As I said, first win of the year for Wyoming. Tough loss for Air Force, and Navy and Air Force are facing each other this weekend at Air Force. Navy hoping to go 5-0. The last time Navy won at the Air Force Academy was 2012. So we'll see what happens there. By the way, Navy and Army, the last time Navy and Army started the season 4-0, both teams, was 1945. So this is a special season so far for these teams.
Yeah, it certainly is. Could get very interesting when it gets down to who's going to play in the American Athletic Conference Championship game and where that might be played. Sam or Steve, any thoughts on how well Navy is playing so far this season?
Yeah, I got to give my hats off to Navy. They've embraced the new offense that they're running, and Horvath is really he's not built like Bryson Daly, but he is, from what I have observed of Navy's offense, he's equally a leader, and he's definitely a competitor out there who is executing plays, and I hate to say it like this, but he kind of reminds me of Malcolm Perry, only he throws the ball a little better, and that's a scary thing. And Navy has certainly earned every victory that they have achieved so far this season. But their defense, on the other hand, it kind of more reminds me. I was thinking about this the other day. Navy's defense kind of reminds me a little more of like the Army Jay Bateman defense back when Jay Bateman was the defensive coordinator. And what I mean by that is it was we solve all our problems through aggression was the big thing with Jay Bateman, and therefore they were they were very much an aggressive defense where they got after it. They gave up a lot of yards, but they tightened up, in the red zone and managed to keep people out, and they forced a lot of turnovers. And that's kind of what Navy's defense is doing, because statistically, Navy's defense has been giving up a lot of rushing yards just about every game. They've been giving up a lot of passing yards just about every game. But what matters is what's on the scoreboard, because they have been opportunistic and forcing turnovers, making plays exactly when they need to make plays to give the ball back in the hands of Horvath. And Navy's offense is so explosive. It's kind of like the, Army's had explosive plays in about every game this year, but Army also has been winning time of possession every game this season, in some cases by a whole bunch. And that's because Army is more methodical in the way we drive the ball, the length of time that we consume with our drives, whereas Navy has been, they've been eating up big chunks of yards on quick strike plays and having very short drives that have resulted in touchdowns. And as a result, when you look at the stats at the end of the game, Navy didn't necessarily dominate or even win time of possession, but they won on the scoreboard. Every game that they play right now is a confidence builder for them. They've got a chip on their shoulder. They've got a swagger. They're trying to overcome the kind of morass that has existed a little bit at the Naval Academy the past few years. And I'm telling you, going into this Air Force game, aside from beating Army, there's nothing more that Navy would love to do than to go into Colorado Springs and beat Air Force. Because 2012, that's a long time ago. We're talking about 12 years ago, and they would love to go in there and make a statement, not just beat Air Force, but make a statement. And it would be a shot across the bow of Army to let Army know that, hey, you may be having a good season, but we are too. So I personally think Navy's going to beat Air Force, and they probably will beat Air Force pretty badly.
I got to tell you, that 2012 game, when Navy went out to the Air Force Academy, Army was hosting Boston College that day. And I was helping to cover a commissioning of a U.S. Navy ship in New York. And I got a chance to be at a press conference with the Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus. So he was waiting for the Chief of Navy Operations, Admiral Gilbert, to come over. And we're at the bow of the ship. So he was having a smoke, Ray Mabus, and composing himself for the day. So I couldn't help but blurt out to him, because he would have been at the Navy at Air Force football game, but he had to be at the ship commissioning in New York City. So I blurted out to him, Mr. Secretary, are you going to beat Air Force today? And he looks at me like I'm crazy. Then he realizes what I'm asking him, and he comes up to me and smiles and said, "Oh yeah, we want our trophy back." Blah 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 blah. And he was like a golfing buddy when I started talking, brought up some Army, Navy, Air Force football. Great Secretary of the Navy. Good to meet him that day. Steve Chaloult.
Yeah, Ken, real quick, Stam, to back up what you talked about. I mean, Navy is under 30 minutes of time of possession, like 29 minutes, 25 for the season. So their time of possession is actually less than their opponents, but they have proven to be so much more potent on an offense. They score very rapidly. Army's still out rushing them in terms of, but passing. Navy's got us on that. In terms of Air Force, and I've watched 3 of Air Force's games thus far this year, and I think we're in this bizarre world where Air Force is playing like Army used to play, and Army's playing like Air Force used to play, and Navy's being Navy when they were under, Coach N's prime time or under Paulie Johnson. But, we are, watching this game. I don't think it's going to be that much of a blowout, actually, because we know each other so well that they will probably play each other pretty tightly. But I mean, I think Navy will definitely come out with a victory. But it's interesting to watch Air Force struggle. I think us and Navy have a equal disdain for the head coach of the Air Force Academy, and I think that will play into this in terms of who I'll be rooting for this weekend. I'm anxious to see, because the season starts now in terms of what Navy and Air Force are going to do. But keep in mind, everybody on this panel, that Air Force was dominating the world last year until they played us out in Denver. Uh-huh. They were 8-0. They were talking about, playing on New Year's Day. And that their world has still not been righted since the butt kicking that we gave them in Denver to this day. So we have a little bit of responsibility for all of that has gone wrong. They've lost their confidence. They've lost their loving feeling. And now it's going to be, we'll see. We'll see this game coming up, but I fully expect Navy's going to put it on them.
Yeah. Got to ask you guys your thinking on this nonsense that's going on between the Pac-12 or Pac, however many teams they are, and the Mountain West. The Pac-12 apparently got agreement to bring 4 of the Mountain West schools, led by by Boise State and Colorado State, to join them in a resuscitated Pac some number. And now Mountain West is down to 7 schools. Both leagues have 7 schools, and which is not enough to be a conference. They all have to find one other school to join the new format. And many observers in college football say, well, why don't the 2 leagues merge and have one strong West Coast conference? But apparently there's too much ego going on between the conference commissioners or college presidents. to make something that would make sense happen. Any thoughts on this? It's like college football needs somebody in charge of it to, to kind of look orderly at the very least, and look out for the interests of the athletes. Steve, anything?
Well, and there's talk of the Big Ten and SEC collaborating on scheduling to create this super conference. So I think, if you don't like what's going on in the conference realignments and all the other things, just wait a minute. It's going to change. Everybody was talking about, Memphis State and everything else. And the people that I talked to knew that Memphis State would not go west. They would not, leave. They would leave for one reason, and that reason is the ACC. They want to play in the ACC. So the ACC hasn't called on them yet, and if they do, that's when they'll go. So I think everybody has an expectation of where they kind of want to be and where they want to go. I mean, I think the natural thing, if we can make it work, is to get Air Force in the AAC. That's the natural thing that would, throw the balance off on everything. Other than that, I really don't care what the Mount West does. I just want to make sure. I'd like to see Air Force come in and play in this conference in a way that this is a fun conference. I mean, I don't know how you guys are feeling, but it's fun to have Chuck talking about the schedule of teams that we're going to play, and they're playing each other, so we can say, yeah, that guy beat that, and we beat them, and they beat this, and to it's exciting to see that because we have this commonality of opponents. So I'm fired up to see how this all plays out at the end because Navy just played a team that we're going to play, and then the Mean Green are going to play the team that we played, and then I'm going to go see the Mean Green Dallas because we're going to play them, and it's kind of like a schoolyard. I put the quarter on the machine and I'm up next, right? Who's next type of thing. It's a lot of fun. I'd like Air Force to be a part of that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I got to give credit. I bumped into him on the field after the Temple game. The American Athletic Conference Commissioner, Tim Pernetti, a former Rutgers player. You played against Steve, and he's done quite a job in recent weeks holding the conference together. As you said, Memphis on deciding to stay, and all the other members. I think he's had to work the phones and work with the college presidents very closely and the athletic directors to keep the stability, and I think he's been successful at that.
No doubt.
Sam, anything?
Well, first, I'm going to be at the Mean Green game as well. So hopefully Steve has any insight and big tailgates that he's going to be a part of. He'll loop me in on that.
Sam and I always find a way to find each other at these games, and we usually will share some brown water.
Yes, indeed.
That could be one of Army's toughest games of the year.
It could be, but and not to get ahead of ourselves, but I was at the last time Army played the Mean Green at North Texas. That was Ahmad Bradshaw's senior year, and there was no defense in that game. I think there was over 100 points put up in that game. I think it was like 52-49. So it'd be interesting to see how this one goes. But yeah, I agree with Steve totally. I would love to see Air Force just go ahead and come join. We tested the water. We put our toe in. The water's warm. AAC's fun so far. It's helped our huddle. It's great to have Chuck doing the AAC roundup every week when we do the huddle. That's a new dimension to our huddle that is much appreciated because it has very much meaning into our discussion, and so that's a good thing to know. Air Force, I don't know. The Air Force is going to do what Air Force is going to do. I know that the powers that be that control Air Force Academy, they seem to have a superiority kind of complex where they tend to look down their noses at the other two service academies, and they do that frequently. There may be a little bit of ego involved. I don't know, but it would be nice if Air Force Academy just recognized that the Mountain West is a dying breed, and maybe you want to go, you might as well just go ahead and do it. We play each other anyway. So, but time will tell. Time will tell what will happen to the Mountain West, what will happen to the Pac-12, and follow the money. I found it interesting that there's still a couple of independents that still exist now, and who knows what's going to happen to them in the long run. I think that eventually we're within the next 2 seasons, we're going to not have any more independent football teams at all in FBS level. But, for our perspective, it's just, paying attention to and staying focused on the next game. And the next game that started with this season, now that we're in the meat of AAC, is that the next game is not only it's a focus on going 1-0, it's chalking up another notch on your conference record as we plow our way through, because now Army, I'm sure Coach Monk, and always the goal every year is Commander-in-Chief trophy, a bowl game victory, a national ranking, and now you got to add to those goals conference championship. And hey, look at it. If the season ended right now, Army and Navy would be playing each other twice this season because they would be playing in the conference championship. So that's pretty exciting stuff to me, man. So, and I got to be honest with you. I've said it before in our huddles. When we talked about this stuff in seasons past, I had a lot of consternation about joining a conference. But the tea leaves were there, the writing was on the wall, and it was inevitable. Army had to join a conference. Just you can't remain an independent in this day and age of FBS football. You're just going to get squeezed out of everything.
Yeah, I think Connecticut and Massachusetts from the Northeast are just in a flux because there isn't a conference that's based in the Northeast, since the Big East broke up. And they also have basketball considerations, especially at UConn. So let's go to Chuck as you were getting accolades. What are the other American Athletic Conference games this weekend? Of course, Army will be at Tulsa.
Yep. Besides that one, Ken, got a few good matchups. We got Navy at Air Force Saturday at noon. That's being aired by CBS. Then we got Tulane against UAB at 1 o'clock ESPN Plus. East Carolina and Charlotte taking each other on 3:30 ESPNU. And finally, Temple versus Connecticut 3:30 on CBS Sports Network.
Very good. Thank you. Do we have the time on the Army's game? Is it 12 noon or is it possible?
That's correct, Ken.
Yeah, it's 11 local. 11 local.
Yeah,
11 local. Okay, so we'll be having a brunch down in Tulsa. Looking forward to trying and get to the Association of Graduates pregame. That was a wonderful event everywhere Army football goes. And get a talk from the superintendent, General Gillen. And Richard, why don't you take us through? Tell us, what are the 5 games you're going to watch this week in addition to Army at Tulsa?
The 5 games I'm going to be watching this weekend are, including Army and Tulsa, will be Auburn against number 5 Georgia, Iowa against number 3 Ohio State, Alabama after that. I mean, thrilling game last week against Georgia. Oh, absolutely! I think really one of the most thrilling games of the season thus far. Also, you've got number 4 Tennessee taking Arkansas at 7:30, and the last game that I will be watching is number 8 Miami taking on California at 10:30.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Now, last week on our lightning round, the accolades go to Chuck, who had the score at 42-12. He was absolutely right on the offensive performance by Army. And Richard, also 42-21. He had the right offensive score, didn't have the confidence in the defense. 42-21. So what do we think? Let's go around and do our lightning round on this week, Army at Tulsa. Who would like to start? How about Jack McGurk? Would you like to start?
All right. I like Army in this game. I'm going to go 31-17 Army.
31-17 Army, and that's from Jack. Okay, Chuck, what do you think? Army at Tulsa.
Well, Ken, now that I have a reputation to live up to, I think this week's game going to be something similar to what we saw Thursday night against Temple. I think the final will be 35-13.
35-13, Army over Temple. Okay, I'm going to save Richard for last. Sam Houston, what's your thought on Army at Tulsa?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one, and I got to be honest, I haven't watched any game that Tulsa has played this year. I've only gone back and reviewed the team, their stats, and their record, and the teams that they have played and won and lost against. But I've got to say that so far this season, every time I've had consternation about a game, Army has shown up just locked in. Like what did we call it last year? It was a cyborg Terminator with a Swiss Army knife offense. I perceive this game to be a real cyborg Terminator with a Swiss Army knife offense day, and Army is they're just playing every game in a very workmanlike, getting the job done manner, and their offensive line is that I'm just amazed at how good the offensive line of this Army team is. Would love to be able to have 21-year-old wheels again and run behind an offensive line like that. It's got to be so exciting. But that being said, I think that this game, I'm going to side on optimism a little bit more for Army this week than I have in the past. I think that Army's going to win this game 45-17, and I think Bryson Daly is going to have another multi-touchdown running and passing game, just like he has been having most of this season. So that's my prediction for this week, and I think that the type of bonehead plays that we saw against Temple are not going to happen this week.
Okay, Sam Houston's got Army 45-17. Steve Chaloult, what are you thinking?
Well, number one, before Richard gets too excited about how close he came on the last week's score, being the only one on the panel that's ever been a contestant on The Price is Right, you're not allowed to go over. So I'm just going to tell you that right now. I have experience from my time on that show, but
okay,
this is going to be Army's first time that we are going to be slightly tested. Not going to say fully tested, but I feel like slightly tested. Second road game in a row against the team that's going to be feeling that they need to prove something, coming off a tough loss. And Army's going to win 28-21. It'll be a one-score game. And we're going to get tested for the first time. And it's going to be good for us to have that test.
Okay. Bring us back down to reality a little bit there, Steve. Okay, Richard, we're going to let you, as you had the very close prediction last week. What are you thinking this week? We're all going to want to hear what you have.
Let's see. I'm gonna side. Army is gonna win. I think it's gonna be a game where it's gonna be another dominating performance. 45-17. I'm gonna be in that ballpark. That Army's gonna win. 45-7. And I have one question for I have a question for Steve about that price that says that he was on The Price is Right. Is when this is over, I'll ask him, is that online anywhere so I could absolutely see, because
it is online. It is online. But I will tell you that I won a kitchen dinette set and a year supply of shredded wheat.
Oh,
Could have something to eat in your kitchen, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, this might be
I'll
a
have to
first.
dig up that video for next week.
This might be a first. Did I hear Richard predict the same score I did? I think that's the first.
Wow.
Yeah, you may have. Yeah.
Wow. The two Sears, 45-17. I'm going to go a little different. I think Army could have a big offensive day. I'm going to go for 52. and I think they're going to hold them to less. And so I'm going to go 52-10. I think this is going to be a big performance by Army. The defense is going to show up big. They've been they're they're becoming, their stats are really good, giving up a maximum of 14 points a game. And I think they're getting better with each week. They're gaining confidence. I watch them out on the practice field. They have a sense of purpose. And they were doing blocking and tackling drills today. They're getting better. And as we've been saying, they're going to avoid some of the mistakes that they've made. Coach Worley said, you got to stop. The pre-snap penalties are a great way to force you to have to punt. And so, and I think they're going to make less mistakes. Also, they're playing an inexperienced quarterback who's given up 4 interceptions. I think Max DiDomenico. Despite they're still concerned about his hand. He have a cast with a glove over it. And his situation, but he'll be out there playing center field and looking to pick off and make create a few turnovers. So I think Army could have a real big day out of Tulsa. We'll see. Tulsa does stop the run pretty well. It's one of their best stats. I think they held opponents to 130 yards a game. So they will get tested. They've already seen the Navy option, and now they'll get a chance to feel the fury of the Army option and that offensive line that you've been describing. So, any other final comments before we break?
Well, I certainly hope Army keeps up their winning ways.
Yeah. I'll be out there, provide some live coverage. It's a little quieter here in Kinsey Hall on the 4th floor. All the players have finished dinner and are off at their study halls. And great to see. So I saw Cale Hillam just a few minutes ago as he was heading off. So anyway, thank you all. Richard Miller from Florida.
Thank you, Ken.
Sam Houston from Huntsville. And really our best wishes to your family and all of those impacted by this terrible storm. And again, encourage people to look up and donate to the Red Cross, Salvation Army, or any of the other wonderful groups that are providing relief effort in that Western North Carolina region.
Absolutely. Even just prayers are appreciated in this very, very tumultuous time up there. It is a very dire situation, and they need your help. They really do.
Okay. Well, everybody can do a little bit, but it's what they're facing is there. But we're glad your parents are doing okay. Steve Chaloult, thank you. Thanks for providing your expertise as a former Army football player.
No, I appreciate it, and our thoughts and prayers. And there are a couple more storms that are brewing out there in the tropics that we just hope that they catch the jet stream and head towards the North Atlantic.
Yes, absolutely. We haven't had a bad storm yet in the Northeast, but last year we had just horrendous storms in September. But nothing like what's being talked about having happened in Western North Carolina. Wow. Jack McGurk, thank you. Thanks for keeping track of Navy and Air Force. And, actually, I'm going to try to get out to the Navy Notre Dame game in a couple of weeks out of the Meadowlands, 2 future Army opponents, and we can get you out there. Chuck Donegan, good to see you. Thank you.
My pleasure, Ken, as always.
Good. I always thank you all. Always like to highlight the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, a wonderful charity that provides scholarships and mentoring to families in the special operations community who have lost a member in military service. They also support Medal of Honor families, and wonderful charity based down in Tampa. The Yankees are a big sponsor and supporters of theirs, and they do great work supporting the special operations community. So anyway, gentlemen, thank you. And I'm going to sign off here from Kimsey Hall. All the players are off at study hall and getting set. They'll get on a plane Friday to out to Tulsa to play and go after win number 5. Thanks for watching. Ken Kreitzer for Cam. That's Media. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, and veterans proudly since 2008. Thanks for watching.